Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Kaplan, and I work for SEB Housing. And this is the information session for the one affordable condo at Copper Cove in Plymouth. The purpose of the session is to give you a little bit more information about the condo itself, the application process, eligibility and lottery process, and what to expect after all of that. So if you have any questions during the session, you can type them in the chat to the right. And I'm going to type something now in here so you see what I'm talking about. There is no option to unmute yourself or anything like that, so please feel free to type any questions in there. There is also a conference call that's running concurrently right now. If you would rather join by phone, you can do that. And I'm going to put the information in the chat so you can see that, the phone number and the code. And so this is a live session. If you are watching this after the fact, you know that it's been saved to YouTube, our YouTube channel, so you're able to go back if you have any questions and maybe want to take a look at the recording. So if you need to email us at any time during this process, if you submit an application, you have questions, you can email us at info@sebhousing.com. That was also just put into the chat. And email is really the easiest, quickest way to get in touch with us. But if you prefer to call, you can do that as well. And our phone number I'm going to put in there right now as well. So those are the logistics of the session. Hopefully you find it informative. Some quick background on SEB Housing in general. So we are an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We're not on-site. We're not the leasing office or the management company. We're hired by the developer to market and conduct the information session, collect lottery applications, and actually run the lottery for this affordable housing opportunity. And we'll be the ones to determine your eligibility for this condo. And in the initial phases of this opportunity, we're your main contact. And then further along in the process, if you're getting ready to purchase the condo, you'll be in touch with the leasing office, the developer, or the management company. And so there's two broad steps in the process. And the first is to actually apply for the affordable housing program. And you'll be in touch, like I said, with SEB through most of that process, and we can answer any questions you have on the program itself, on how we determine your eligibility, and all of that. We're going to review your application and all the supporting documentation that you have, and you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the wait list. So the second broad step in the whole process is actually reserving the condo and buying the home. And your opportunity to do so is going to depend on your waitlist placement following the lottery. If you haven't taken a look at our website already, you can go ahead and do that. There's going to be some more information regarding Copper Cove specifically there. So it's sebhousing.com. Just put that in the chat as well. And the information packet really contains most of the information we're going to be talking about this evening. And that can be found on the Copper Cove listing on our website. So if you navigate over there and select I want to buy, you're going to see Copper Cove listed as an option. And there's downloadable versions of the information packet that we're going to be going through tonight, the application itself, and the deed rider, which we're going to discuss. So we're not going to have time to go over everything that's in the information packet, but I am going to touch on all of the pertinent information that you'll need to know. So it is recommended that you review that information packet even if you are attending this session tonight. So if you choose to apply for to purchase the affordable condo at Copper Cove, you're going to need to submit the lottery application. And you can do that in one of several ways. And the first is by email or scanning the application to us. You can fax it. The fax number is listed on the first page of the application. And you can also submit it by regular mail or bring it to our office in Needham at 257 Hillside Ave. There's a drop box located there to the left of the building, and we do check that every day. So you can do that. Whichever is most convenient for you is perfectly fine. It's just you want to apply as early as you can just to get the process started if you are interested in this opportunity. We want you to get it in early also because it's fairly lengthy, and it's more often than not applicants are submitting applications that aren't complete, which is completely fine. That doesn't mean that you are going to be disqualified from the lottery. We are going to review the application and give you a notice or contact you to let you know what is missing. So you can go ahead and submit the documentation and have a second stab at that. So along with your lottery application and supporting documentation, you're also going to need to submit a mortgage pre-approval. And we're going to cover more about that during the presentation, so you're more familiar with what that means. But getting that pre-approval can take some time. So if you are interested in the opportunity, we do recommend that you begin that process, that pre-approval process, soon, since the application deadline is coming up. And that deadline is May 6th at 2 p.m. So we would want to have all applications for buyers in by that date. And they need to be postmarked by that date to be considered. So if you get it in the mail by 2 p.m., you'll be fine, even if it is received by us a few days later. You don't need to be a resident of Plymouth to apply for this lottery, so it's open to anyone. So some background on the home itself, the condo. It is a 2-bedroom condo located in downtown Plymouth, and it's at 216 Water Street. And it's right across from the waterfront, just north of most of the shops that you might be familiar with in downtown Plymouth. And Copper Cove Village itself is an existing rental community that is being transitioned to a condo community. So it's a 2-bedroom affordable condo. It has 2 bathrooms and about 1,099 square feet of living space. It has an open floor plan with fantastic views of the waterfront and the town. And there is a washer and dryer in the unit, stainless steel appliances, high-end cabinets, and quartz countertops. With its downtown location, the condo is really close to restaurants and shops, like I said, but also golf courses, beaches, Nelson Park, bike trails. There's boat access right across the street from the community. And with access to downtown, there's lots of cultural events throughout the year in Plymouth that you might be interested in. So the homeowner is going to be responsible for taxes, insurance, all home utilities, and indoor maintenance, which you might expect when you're purchasing a property. Since this is a condo, there is a $409 monthly fee, which is going to cover a condo fee, which is going to cover snow removal, management fees, common water and sewer, and common insurance for the building, as well as common gas and electric and reserve funds. The price of the home is $251,800, so it's priced significantly below market rate, what you might see in the town of Plymouth for a 2-bedroom condo. And since the home is being sold at an affordable price, it's only being made available to households whose incomes are below 80% of area median income, which is referred to as AMI. You'll hear me say that throughout this presentation. AMI, area median income, are the amounts that the Department of Urban Development, so HUD, releases each spring. And Plymouth falls within the Metro Boston area. As this is an affordable home, you're going to want to keep in mind that it's going to have what is called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. And this ensures that the condo remains affordable in the future, even if the future owner decides to sell the home. So a little bit of an overview of what that means for you as a buyer. the deed rider basically limits the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. The opportunity really isn't for you if you're looking to buy a property and then flip it, resell it in a year or two. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to sell it for more than what you paid and make a profit, but it's not going to be resold at market value. So it's going to be resold to another affordable buyer. So it's possible and it's likely that you'll have some return on investment, but you shouldn't expect the same appreciation that market rate homes are selling for. And the formula for resale price is explained a little bit more on the last page of the info pack. It's also based on the area median income. Another thing you need to keep in mind that's mentioned in the deed rider is this condo would have to be your primary residence. Generally cannot be rented out as an investment property like an Airbnb. And thirdly, if you would like to refinance or make capital improvements to the home, like a new roof or something like that, DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, would need to be involved with that process. And these units are fairly new. I know that they're only a few years old, so you likely would not need to be doing any improvements right away. And I see there's a question in the chat, and Dave, thank you for chiming in. We'd have to take a look at the floor plans to see if the affordable unit is facing Water Street or Lothrop Street, which is the cross street for this development. So we can look into that for you. So I'll circle back to you in just a few moments on that if Dave isn't there to check on the computer right now, because we do have the floor plans. So I mentioned that a mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So we suggest that after you review the information packet, you really just take a copy or even just detach and rip out page 10, which lists the required mortgage pre-approval standards for this housing opportunity, and bring it to your bank, the mortgage lender, whoever you're going to be taking out the mortgage from, to show it to them. You really want to be sure that the mortgage product that the bank gives you is going to meet the necessary standards for this affordable housing opportunity. You might also want to bring a sample of the deed rider, which is on the website listing, as I mentioned, so it's attached to the listing on our website for Copper Cove. And the reason for that is because some of the information listed in the deed rider might be problematic for some lenders, and certain loans won't accept the terms that you'll see in that sample deed rider. For example, the loan must have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It can't be an FHA or a VA loan, since those types of loans don't accept these deed restrictions. And you really don't want to be in a situation where the lender is not able to close, offer you the mortgage at the end of this whole process. So along those lines, we do want to mention that it's been our experience that it's been difficult for applicants to successfully close with Bank of America for affordable units as a lender. So we recommend that you don't use Bank of America for your pre-approval or mortgage commitment, because their mortgage products are likely not suited for these affordable units. So with that said, you really are able to select any lender that you would like, any bank. We just recommend that you choose a lender who is experienced with affordable housing. A link is included on page 10 of the information packet, which will direct you to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership website. This is a great site for resources to find lenders who are familiar with affordable housing. So go ahead and take a look there to start off. So the mortgage pre-approvals you're going to notice state that you must provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price, of which 1.5% must come out of your own funds. So your loan and your mortgage amount can be up to 97% of the purchase price. So what are the eligibility criteria? So if you're tuning in to confirm whether or not you're eligible for this opportunity, and you've looked at the information pack, this might help you out a little bit more to talk through some of these. So there's 4 general eligibility requirements listed on page 4 of the info pack. The first is that everyone in the household needs to qualify as a first-time home buyer. And there are exceptions to this, which we're going to talk about in a few moments. But even for households who qualify for one of these exceptions, if they do own a home, if you do own a home, you need to be off of that deed. So sell the home prior to closing on the affordable condo at Copper Cove. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. The second eligibility requirement, and the one that we're going to cover the most in this session, is that the household's income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and asset limit. And like I said, we're going to talk through that. The third eligibility requirement is you must be pre-approved for a mortgage, which we talked about. And the fourth is rare, but it comes up sometimes. Households cannot have financial interest in the development or be a related party. What that means is if you know the owner, if you work at the, if you work with the owner, if you're employed by them, you are not going to be eligible for this lottery. And the condo is being offered by Southern Dunes LLC. So if you work for them, if you're related to them somehow, you may not be eligible for this opportunity. So to circle back to the first eligibility criteria, everyone in the household must be a first-time home buyer. So all members of the household are considered first-time home buyers if they haven't owned a home within the last 3 years. This includes through joint ownership. So if a household member was on a deed with a spouse maybe or a partner, they would still be considered owners of that home. So the 5 exceptions to this, which is also in the information packet, the 3 that come up the most often, the 3 exceptions that come up the most often, is if someone is a displaced homemaker. So that would be someone who has not worked outside of the home for many years. They own a home with their partner, spouse, or have owned, I should say, but are no longer owning the home due to a recent divorce or legal separation. So that person is no longer on the home's deed, but did own that home within the last 3 years. They could still be eligible for this designation as a first-time home buyer. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or someone who is pregnant and is now being displaced and is now looking for a new home. So someone, again, that maybe has just come off a relationship and is looking to purchase something on their own. The third exception is an age qualified household. So this applies to a household with at least 1 member who is 55 or older, and the person is selling or has sold the home recently in order to purchase this affordable property. So like I said, if you qualify for any of these exceptions, you do still need to sell the home before buying the condo at Copper Cove. This might mean that a divorce would need to be finalized so that your name is no longer on that deed. And I see Dave got back to Brooke here, so I just want to, anybody that maybe is on the phone here, the affordable unit does face Water Street on one side and faces Lothrop Street on the other side. So it is a corner unit, and part of it is facing the water, which is great. Thank you for raising that. The income limits. Since this is an affordable unit, it's being made available to families with income below 80% of median income, like we talked about, and it's obviously being offered at a price that is lower than market rate for the area. And the maximum income limits are set by household size. So I'm going to read them for you now, but you obviously don't have to remember all of these. They're in the information packet. For a 1-person household, the income limit for this housing opportunity is $70,750. For a 2-person household, the income limit is $80,850. For a 3-person household, the income limit is $90,950. For a 4-person household, the limit is $101,050. For a 5-person household, the income limit is $109,150. And for a 6-person household, the income limit is $117,250. So that's income and income from assets counted for everyone in your household. Income limits are updated annually by HUD and usually around this time of year in April. So the new amounts haven't yet been released, but when they are released, we are going to be using them to review all applications and determine whether or not your household is eligible for this lottery. So once they are released, the new limits will be posted on our website, and you'll see them in the listing for Copper Cove. So all households are going to be required to submit supporting income and asset documentation. And the required documents for your household vary a little bit depending on what your income and asset situation is. In general, they're going to include, if you have an employer, if you have a wage coming in, we're going to need your five most recent pay stubs from that job. You're going to also need to submit bank statements from the last 3 months for all accounts that you have. So we'll talk a little bit more about what we're looking for in terms of bank accounts and other accounts that you may have. We're also going to need copies of your federal tax returns for the last 3 years. So just to give a basic overview of how your income is going to be calculated, because you might be wondering that, income for this program is counted as a projection of your income, your total household income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes all income, and it includes, bonuses and overtime, things that you may not be necessarily guaranteed to earn over the next year. And the only exception to that really is income from minors. So wage income for anyone under the age of 18 who's earning a wage, we're not going to count that, with the exception of $480. So the first $480 of a minor's income will not be counted, but the rest of it will be counted towards determining what your total household income is. We also need to count gross income. So that's not net income you might see on your pay stubs, for example. It's the amount you make before taxes. Although you don't take that full amount home from your salary, it is what the program requires us to use, unfortunately. So similar to what you need to supply for this with your application, the way that we count or calculate your income is also not one size fits all. So everyone's income circumstances are unique. And so while some applicants have a weekly wage that is consistent throughout the year, other people are self-employed or maybe work seasonally. So in those circumstances, we need to look further back. We may need to look further back in the past to project anticipated income for the next 12 months. Specifically for applicants who are self-employed, we're going to need you to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation. So your business expenses are taken into account if you're self-employed, but if you're not self-employed, it's always going to be gross income that we're counting. So in general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume you will continue to make going forward, even if that income includes overtime or bonuses, which we understand are not guaranteed. This is really unless we have definitive documentation stating that there will be no chance of overtime or bonuses in the coming year. This could be a written letter, for example, from your employer that's confirming that bonuses and overtime are not going to be paid out at all in the coming year. Along those same lines, we're not permitted to accept statements from applicants. So if we are in possession of a document that is showing that you make $80,000 or you made $80,000 in the last year, but an applicant is stating that they plan to work far less hours in the coming year, and maybe we're only going to be anticipating $50,000 in the next year, we're still going to need to count the $80,000 as the projected income unless a written statement is coming in or is submitted from the employer confirming that you will only be making $50,000 in the coming year. So some sources of income to keep in mind. There's a table in the information packet that is listing most of these, but just so all of these are on your radar, want to mention some income types that we're looking for. So wages, either from self-employment or from an employer, Social Security, SSDI, child support, alimony, retirement distributions, if you're drawing out of your retirement account and taking that as income, unemployment benefits, workman's compensation, pensions, periodic payments from friends or family members counts as income. And what we would need in order to confirm that type of income, because you wouldn't have a statement, would be some sort of a letter from the family member confirming the amount and frequency of those payments. And then any assets that you have that are generating income, that income is going to count towards your total household income as well. So to apply for the lottery, there's no minimum income requirements, but in order to qualify for a mortgage, as we talked about, you're going to need to meet the lender or the bank's requirements to receive that pre-approval for a mortgage. So keep that in mind. Assets. So households may not have a total of more than $75,000 in assets at the time of the application. And assets include any funds you might use towards a future down payment. So if someone has gifted you money to pay for a down payment for this condo, that would be counting towards your $75,000 asset cap. Also, assets include any cash and savings or checking accounts, CDs, net value of stocks, or retirement accounts, bonds, Venmo, PayPal accounts. So Venmo and PayPal are some things that you might not think of as a bank account, but we are going to be asking for statements for those accounts, since you do have cash in there if you use those services. So you might think it's a little strange that we need to count the money that you have tied up in retirement accounts, especially since many of you might not be planning on withdrawing that money for quite a while. But the program does require us to do so, since you could, in theory, access the account to withdraw funds, even if there is a penalty associated with doing so. And just remember that it is the post-penalty account, or amount, I should say, or the net cash value that we're going to be counting when we're looking at those retirement accounts. So it's not the full amount, it's the post-penalty cash value. And you'd be asked to get a letter from the financial institution listing what that post-penalty amount would be. That's how we would verify that amount. And so, like I said before, in the income portion of this, if income is generated from any of these assets, we are going to need to count that as income. What we don't need documentation for in terms of assets are personal assets. So if you have jewelry, art, cars, things like that, we don't need to count that as part of this asset limit. So lottery eligibility. So I mentioned earlier that if you're interested, you should try to apply as soon as possible to get the process started. And we're SEB. We will be reviewing your application and contacting you if any information appears to be missing or is incorrect. So you'll have a chance to correct and resubmit that information. And like I said before, most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application on the first try. So do not panic if we send you an incomplete notice. You're going to have plenty of time to try to get that complete for us. And there's two reasons for that. I mean, both there's a lot of information that's required, and also because sometimes when you do supply information, it brings about other questions on our part. So we might have your bank deposits sitting in front of us, and we see something that's coming in that we do need to verify further. So it's completely fine. You're going to be given additional time to complete the application, which is part of the reason we encourage you to apply early. So if you are found eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent a lottery application number, and it will come in the form of a dot and then a series of numbers. And this number is going to be drawn in the lottery. It's meant to be anonymous, so we're not calling names during the lottery session. It's not a ranking of any sort. It really just corresponds with the order in which we received your application. So the first person who submits an application for Copper Cove is going to have the lottery number A.001. On your application, you will have indicated your household type is either 1 or 2. So both types 1 and 2 households can apply for this 2-bedroom condo, but type 2 households are going to have priority. So this means that all type 2 households will be ahead of type 1 households on the wait list that are established following the lottery. There's additional details in the information packet about household composition and household types on page 8. But just for reference, a type 2 household, which will have priority in this lottery, that could be all households with 3 or 4 people, and certain 2-person households would also qualify as type 2. So the lottery application deadline is May 6th at 2 p.m., like we said, and the lottery itself is going to be held virtually on May 18th at 6 p.m., similar to this format, so a YouTube session, and following that lottery, a wait list will be created and distributed to everyone who was a part of the lottery, all households who were part of the lottery. Top households, so if you're at the top of that wait list that was established following the lottery, you're going to be invited by SEB Housing to move forward to reserve the unit, proceed with the mortgage, and potentially buy the condo. During the lottery itself, the lottery numbers that we talked about, whatever your number is going to be drawn from a box, held up to the screen, and it's going to be a recorded session so you can see that the numbers are being drawn there. Every lottery number is going to be drawn. And so sometimes, when we think of lotteries, we think there's one winner. But this lottery is really just held to establish the wait list for this housing opportunity. So if a type 1 household is drawn first in the lottery, they'll still be behind all type 2 households on the wait list. Also, households who were entered into the lottery could be found ineligible or may ultimately decide not to purchase the condo. So if you're drawn, 3rd or 4th in this process, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have the opportunity to buy the condo. So following the lottery, we're going to do our best to send out the wait list immediately. So sometime that night or the following morning at the latest. It'll be sent by email. If you haven't provided an email, we will send it to you by regular mail. So you'll have those in hand shortly after the lottery. You do not need to attend the lottery because when it's actually happening, you're not going to know what your placement is anyway. In general, it is better to be, it's more favorable for you as an applicant to be drawn early, but if you're a type 1 household, as you know, you will not be the first person to be asked to move forward in this process. So if you're among those top households on the wait list following the lottery, our next step is going to be to send your file your completed file to the state, so the Department of Housing and Community Development. They're going to do a file review and give us the green light to move forward with the process, find you eligible, and then we'll be working with you from there. And just a reminder that not everyone from the lottery or everyone who's been approved by SEB is going to be moving forward. Only the top households from each list are going to be moving forward. And this certainly doesn't always happen, but this means that if you're the top or the first household on the wait list and you submit all the required documentation and you're found eligible by us and you make it all the way to purchasing the home, other households who may have been approved would not be given the opportunity to move forward in the process. So if you've been approved by SEB and you move forward, if you're the first person in line, then yes, you do get to to purchase the home if all goes well, but keep that in mind. So once DHCD has approved your application, the process is similar to steps that would be taken if you were purchasing a market rate home. And I should mention as you go through this home buying process, you are more than welcome to, or really are encouraged to hire an attorney, because this is obviously a huge undertaking for you. You're navigating through this whole process potentially for the first time, and you just want to be well prepared and represented. So once DHCD has approved your application, you'll be put in touch with the owner and the developer of the unit to schedule a time to tour the home and complete the reservation agreement. In order to reserve the home, you're going to be making a $500 refundable deposit at that point. After reserving the home, you're going to have about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale, the P&S agreement, and place the required deposit, which is the 1.5% that we mentioned earlier, 1.5% of the sales price, and that's minus the $500 deposit that you've made. Your purchase and sale agreement will list your actual closing date, and the final step, it's really one of the final steps in the home buying process, so the finish line is near at that point. Once the P&S is signed, you'll need to go back to the bank who issued your mortgage pre-approval and obtain the mortgage commitment. It doesn't need to be the same bank, but it might be easier for you to use the same bank. And the process varies a little bit depending on who your lender is, but generally they're going to review all of the documents that you have up until this point, and that includes the purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider, and all of that. And they're going to do an appraisal on the home as well, on the condo. So SCB Housing then has a final review, and households are going to need to remain eligible for the affordable housing program up until the time that the condo is closed on. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to that closing date, SCB is going to conduct a final review of your income. So we'll be asking for updated pay stubs, bank statements, your mortgage commitment letter, and all of that. We're going to forward that final package on to DHCD again for the final review. And if you're still eligible for the program, you're going to move towards closing. And once you've closed on the home, you can move right in. There's not going to be any future income or asset eligibility reviews. You own the property, and hopefully you enjoy it for years to come. I think that about covers all the points I wanted to talk about in the info packet. Once again, you can find the lottery application for this 2-bedroom condo at Copper Cove in Plymouth on our website, under the I Want to Buy heading. And the info pack and the deed rider are also there. I think we have one person on the phone as well. Is there anyone who has any questions who's listening right now? Stick around for a couple minutes just in case. All right. Good luck in the lottery if you're interested in this opportunity, and have a great night. Bye now.